or during the editing process. Well, why black? Why cut to black? I mean, there was that scene between Meadow and AJ.
Just what do you think you're doing, Dave?
Death.
I thought black was death.
I thought black meant death. So that was in my head also.
I honestly think you ought to sit down calmly, take a stress pill, and think things over.
See, now people will say, see, he admitted Tony died.
Stop, Dave. Will you stop, Dave?
The truth is,
in the new HBO documentary Wise Guy, David Chase and The Sopranos, the legendary show creator expertly tiptoed around questions regarding the final moment of the series. The famous Don't Stop Believin' closing minute when millions of people mistakenly believed their cable went out. A devastating and shrewd trick at the time, which would alas no longer work in the modern world of streaming. The entertaining two-part documentary cleverly ended with a parody of that very scene, which I thought was very well executed and provided for a perfect ending, not unlike the series finale scene it honored. The closest Chase came to confirming Tony's death was when he said this.
I don't know.
Death.
I thought black was death.
I thought black meant death. So that was in my head also.
At the end of the day, it doesn't matter if Chase ever explains Tony's fate. As director of photography Alex Sakharov explained, the ending leads us back to the beginning. The only thing you could do is watch it again and trust the art, not the artist. The clues that explain the ending were all brilliantly and perfectly laid out prior to the controversial event itself. The first major clue came in Soprano home movies here.
You probably don't even hear it when it happens, right?
There's your friend in there, on the wall.
Building on that clue, in the very next episode, that idea was amplified when Silvio experienced the exact same type of thing when Doc Santoro had a hit put on Jerry.
Quattro gatti. I didn't know what happened until after the shot was fired.
Silvio, of course, wasn't whacked, but the silence of incoming death, he never heard it coming. And finally, that idea was driven home in the second to last episode. Tony's organization was dealt a crippling blow in what was probably the greatest 1-2 punch in television history, when Bobby Bacala got whacked, and in the very next scene, Silvio is badly wounded. Tony's defeat was all but complete, and in his moment of fear and despair, he reflected back on the very same conversation he and Bobby had in the season opener.
You probably don't even hear it when it happens, right?
There's your friend in there, on the wall.
There are other smaller clues scattered about that strongly suggest Tony got whacked, including the 3 o'clock warning Chrissy gave to Tony and Paulie, and also, keeping with the sound theme, the repeated bell sounds from the Bobby clue and the ending moment. Additionally, there was no sound played throughout the end credits of that episode, in stark contrast with the rest. Then one of the men who shot Silvio was wearing a members-only jacket, much like that fella in Holston's who got an unusually large amount of screen time during the intense buildup of the infamous ending, while Meadow was going through a parallel parking fiasco. That man just so happened to go to the bathroom, which likewise triggered memories of one of the most famous mob scenes in cinema history, when Michael Corleone officially became a criminal participant in the Corleone crime family. And this has a circular flow, given that Vito Corleone was nearly assassinated while buying oranges, and Tony himself was nearly assassinated while buying orange juice. But it's the 3 key clues involving sound, or the lack thereof, that really drive home the point that Tony was whacked in the end. Tony was more or less finished by the end anyway. Tony had murdered Christopher, Bacala got whacked, Silvio was badly wounded, Carlo flipped on him, Melfi abandoned him, good earners like Ralphie and Vito were both long gone, And in the end, the only guys Tony really had left were Paulie and Patsy, both of whom arguably had reasons to want Tony dead, as did a slew of other characters throughout the series, from Zellman to Furio to that Russian who washed his balls with ice water. And of course, there were people in Phil's family who may have likewise wanted to see Tony dead. The evidence, however, the clues that were deliberately laid out regarding the lack of sound, it all strongly suggests that Tony was indeed whacked, regardless of what Chase did and did not say in the documentary, and regardless of what he may have said in previous interviews where he mistakenly referred to the last scene as the death scene. None of that matters. Trust the art, not the artist. One thing Chase did reveal was that he took a lot of inspiration from Stanley Kubrick's 2001 A Space Odyssey for the series finale he directed. And it goes beyond the fact that Harpo goes by Hal now. Kubrick's bold choices are on full display throughout that masterpiece. Knowing Chase was inspired by the film, thematically and visually, it offers a couple of additional clues. It gives added fuel to the role of silence in The Sopranos finale. In 2001, the humans murdered by Hal all died in silence. We cannot hear their screams. They offer no final words. 3 of the 4 who died were literally turned off. Interestingly enough, Hal was the only one given a perversion of a traditional death scene. Kubrick renders it as if Hal was lying in a pool of blood, making his final confession. But knowing that Chase used Kubrick's 2001 as inspiration, the theme of silence plays a more profound role, further suggesting Tony's death in the end. At the same time, perhaps it's all some grand con, a trick. Chase and Sakharov repeatedly stressed the idea of entering a point of view shot, a simple pattern where the audience is led to believe the person we're watching is what another person is seeing, only to have that person walk into the frame, shattering the previous illusion. While it suggests a certain circularity, the idea that a person is seeing himself as at the end of 2001, it also suggests the artifice of the creator, who is intentionally manipulating the audience. Is he manipulating us into believing Tony died when he did end? Or is he manipulating us to conclude the truth? David Chase may have tiptoed around questions about the ending, but he was far less coy about the fact that he left the door open for future Sopranos projects. That he, on one hand, wanted to work on real movies, and at the same time, he confessed his love to world building when it came to the challenges that came with creating what is perhaps the most celebrated television series of all time. The simple truth remains that David Chase was hedging his bets on a future Sopranos movie or revival that acted as a continuation of the story, a dream that sadly died when James Gandolfini passed away. The fact that Chase left the possibility open to keep Tony alive and continue the story, that was the true motivating factor behind the ending. The clues are all there that Tony was indeed whacked. But by keeping it open-ended, he kept his future Sopranos options open, and he also poetically ended the series on an open-ended note where everything is ultimately left to individual taste and personal interpretation. You can believe Tony was whacked. You can believe the audience was whacked. You can believe Tony was finally arrested. Or you can believe Tony went on and on and on and on and lived happily ever after. If you don't believe the proof in the 3 key clues that Tony was whacked, then who the hell am I to tell you otherwise? Don't stop believing. Don't stop. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed and have a wonderful night.
You bring Harpo down here. It's a big place.
Harpo changed his name. He's Hal now.
Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
You know, Quasimodo predicted all this.
One of the lyrics in that song, the movie never ends. It goes on and on and on and on.
Daisy, Daisy, give me your answer,